All right, we got a nice fresh face here. ATAK's newest Senior Growth Strategist, Lindsay O'Connor. Lindsay, thanks for being here today.
Thanks for having me.
Lindsay actually slacked me and said, "Hey, I got some stuff I want to say." And I was like, "Oh, really? Will you do it on camera?" And she was like, "Okay, all right, I'll help out." So what we want to talk about today is demand gen, because a lot of times what we're doing with clients, certainly we're doing lead generation for them, but demand gen is a little different. So why don't we just start off the top? Why don't we talk about the difference between demand gen and lead gen?
Sure. Yeah. On the lead gen side, every business, is like, we need to generate leads. We need to get more customers into our pipeline. So let's set up, say, a PPC campaign. Let's get some forums on our site. They may have heard of this SEO thing. So they know they need blogs or meta titles. And they're like, all right, let's generate some leads. And that's great. But what a lot of businesses fail to understand is that 95% of your addressable market has never heard of you. So while they might be actively searching for solutions, they might still be in that education stage, more top of funnel folks who need to be further educated. Or, they may not even realize that they have a problem or a solution that a problem that you can solve with your solutions. And so this is where demand gen comes in. It's the education component, but it's also complete ownership of your category. So it's not only just let's get leads into the pipeline, let's become the solution. Let the brand become the solution itself. Let's be the Nike of our SaaS product. Let's be the Adidas of our accounting software. Essentially, what you want to do is you want to own that category and essentially drive scaling growth over time rather than just capturing leads in that middle funnel stage.
Yeah, and I think we see it a lot with our clients, right? Because we've worked in the past with clients who are launching something new, and despite all the best efforts to get in front of the industry and to be well known, we run campaigns and without social proof, without those appearances at the conferences and the YouTube videos and the content really explaining all the different areas of the product or service, it is much harder to work with those than companies that are already established as industry leaders. So how can a company that is, maybe they're like, okay, that all sounds awesome, but I've only got a limited budget. And if I spend, you know, $2,000 a month on ads, I can track that pretty easy. I can see from that how many leads I get, how many of those convert into customers, and then how much revenue that brings, and then what my, my ROAS is on all of that. But with demand gen, it's a little bit more of that art part of marketing than the science. So what's the best way to measure the impact of your demand gen campaign?
Yeah, definitely. I think a couple points. I think first is establishing those North Star KPIs that are related not just to lead gen, but also to brand impact and messaging impact. So you're going to be wanting to look at cross channel KPIs, obviously lead gen from things like PPC and organic channels, but also brand growth. Metrics and indications of brand familiarity, engagement metrics, those things that people typically would consider to be vanity also help to prove brand health overall amongst your ICP. And then you're going to want to have a really robust and strong attribution framework within your marketing reporting and strategy to really track the user journey and experience and how those different touch points are influencing the ultimate conversions and sales. So for example, it's really routine and easy to attribute a lead that came from PPC or a blog or a contact form in their original source, but really you want to have a integrated approach that shows how different touch points, whether it's content, email, an ad, etc., has had an influence on their user journey. So someone might be searching for a solution, they land on your site, and they land on those high intent sales pages. They're digging deeper into your site. And you have this nice audience now that you can then remarket through your PPC campaigns. So these different touch points, and then ultimately nurture through any MarTech stacks that you have for nurturing. And so these different touch points each serve as edifying components and making sure that the leads that ultimately do enter into your pipeline are well educated and ready to close. I think that's the other component is you don't just want to generate leads for the sake of generating leads. You want to accelerate that pipeline closing process so that the folks that you put in front of your sales team are ready to go. So I think that's the other component of demand gen that sometimes often gets overlooked is what is that, MQL, SQL to close time look like? And, generating a lead doesn't necessarily mean that they're ready to close. But the more well educated they are, the number of touch points that they've had to really move them through the funnel means that your sales team has a much more healthy, well educated lead to work with.
Yeah, and I think there's obviously a big scale way of doing this, but I can tell a little story about a smaller scale version. So Attack, we ran some SEO campaigns a few years ago that were very. We saw a lane in the dev space for bottom of the funnel keywords around a certain type of lane, coding language with agency and firm, all of that after it, and we did really well in terms of getting it in the top five of a lot of relevant searches. And we maybe got like 2 leads from it. And recently, we've been doing a lot more of these videos. And one of the angles that me and Stephen Thiel have been working on, shout out Stephen, is the conversations around the HubSpot and Salesforce integration. Well, people have been finding us on those all the time on YouTube, and he'll enter sales calls and be like, "Oh, you're the guy from YouTube," and they get really, really excited, right? So there is that opportunity to be able to showcase what you're doing at a minimal level, right? And to be able to do demand gen without feeling like, "Oh gosh, well, how am I going to get booked at the big industry conference or something like that?" It really is just being able to take the areas of your business where you're really knowledgeable and being able to create the type of content that you put out just to help, right? You're not trying
Yeah.
to, you're not using your demand gen campaign to be like, "Come on, sign up right now." But obviously, you have, when it all plays together, you have all of those different touch points to get there. And to what you were saying before, you can see the attribution model. But on the topic of attribution models, we know that lead gen is the clearest form of ROI, right? I spent X, I got Y. That demand gen, people are going to have to, there's still at some point you're going to have to go, wait, how is this actually helping? So what's the timeline for that? Because it's marketing, right? What do we always do? We A/B test. It takes time. All of that. What is the timeline to really be able to see where demand gen and lead gen campaigns are working together and are an improvement? Let's say 3, 6, 9 months down the road from where you were beforehand.
Yeah, that's a great question with definitely a lot of variables. It definitely depends on I it depends on what vertical you serve or verticals you serve primarily. I mean, most businesses in the B2B SaaS world or manufacturing, any kind of B2B arena have longer sales cycles inherently. So there is that component of, again, educating and all the different bells and whistles and hoops you have to jump through to get to the decision makers. So that being said, I think it also comes down to breaking down the components of that demand gen strategy. One pillar of it obviously should be the organic strategy, which is building the search equity of those key terms and your brand. And that takes time. As everyone knows, SEO takes a little time. We're talking 4 to 5 to 6 months to really prove the return on the efforts there. But that's the long game. And the long game supports long-term scaling growth that is worthy of investing in. And I always recommend that the foundation of a lead or demand gen program should be getting those SEO pieces in place first so that they have time to sort of marinate and seed and grow over time while you layer on top the paid efforts, which afford you short-term wins and sort of that morale boost of lead gen, but also those health indicators of impact more readily available, more apparent. So although some people might consider them to be, vanity metrics, KPIs around engagement rates, click-through rates, overall traffic to your site from paid and organic sources, the depth of page views on your site, the time on site. Those things are all health indicators that kind of tell a larger story of not only volume increases, but that you're getting the right people to your site or to your digital presence that have enough interest in your product, service, offering, or brand that they want to go deeper, they want to learn more. So again, demand gen's not just about selling people on an idea. You're selling them on yourself. You're selling them on your brand to build that brand affinity, and also establishing that component of thought leadership, which I really wish we could, as an industry, come up with a different term for that, but like thought leadership, so that, again, back to the Nike example, they know who you are. And even if they are not ready for your service yet, when they are, they know where to go. And that's the whole play with demand gen, is you have these longer plays and these shorter wins. And eventually those longer plays start to catch up to those short wins. And I think that is a consideration, communication, that a lot of orgs need to have internally as well, is like, we have to layer in these different pieces of this strategy and parse out our expectations of what the returns are going to be over time.
That was awesome. Lindsay, thank you so much. I love it. I love the conversation around demand gen, lead gen. And yeah, thanks for spelling that out for us.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for having me.
That's it for today. If you like what you see, give us a thumbs up and make sure you hit subscribe so you can see our latest videos as soon as they drop. We really appreciate you watching. See you next time.